of how to use Xamarin Studio along with MvvmCross in the current state. Things are really changing. Hopefully they're improving, but things are really changing in the Xamarin world with portable class libraries. And really soon, these instructions that I put here are going to be out of date. But hopefully it'll be pretty similar, so we'll see how it goes. So what I'm going to do is create a new solution, and I'm going to create it in my GitHub directory, just so that it's alongside where I've downloaded my binaries. So it's going to be in that directory, and I'll call this solution Android demo. And the first thing I want to create is a portable class library. So I'm going to create a core. It's corrected that for me. So I'm going to create a portable class library. Unfortunately, when it creates a portable class library, it creates it with the wrong profile. So what I then have to do is open the file. And so sorry, this is a bit techy, but I have to open the file here as a proj, and I choose to open it with the source code editor. And what you'll see in here, hopefully I can remember how to zoom in. Yeah, what you'll see in here is a line with profile 1 written in it, and I'm just going to change that to profile 104. I'm not sure you have to do that, but it's pretty good to do it, because then you can use this project again later. So I'll close that, and this is now loaded up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the MvvmCross references. And to do that, well, I've downloaded them, and I'm actually going to surprise you, because I'm going to use the ones which I've built on the PC. I've got problems at the moment with sorry, I'm in the wrong directory. I've got problems with the Mac build, which again are to do with the changes in portable class libraries. So I've gone into the downloaded ones from GitHub binaries, Visual Studio bin, and I can choose debug or release. I'll go into release, and in portable, I'll choose MvvmCross DLL, and I will also choose cross core DLL, and I'll choose to add them, so they've been added. And once I've done that, I can come back here, and hopefully I can start just editing my code. So if I take a look, the first thing I want to do is change my my class to be an app. So I'll inherit from MVX application, and with a following wind, I might be able to get IntelliSense on that. No. So what I'll have to do is, actually I should be able to get IntelliSense if I rebuild. Let me try that. Rebuild. Right, so now it's complaining, and hopefully, no, it's not going to give me Alt Enter. So I happen to know that my MVX application is in Sirius and is in MvvmCross.viewModels. So if I now change that and change this to app, then hopefully it should work. Let's just see, build. Okay, so now it's building, but it's not giving me any help at all. Let me just see if I close it and open it, if it comes back to life with a bit more luck. No, okay, so it's just going to complain. As I say, this varies from version to version of Xamarin Studio and of Xamarin.Android, and so hopefully soon this will be changed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the override for initialize, and initialize looks like that, or is it with a Z? Hint, make initialize static. No, I don't think I want that hint. And what I'm going to do in initialize is you can, if you want, use the creatable type things and do your normal IOC setup. But what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to register my app start, and this is a lot easier when you do have IntelliSense. My app start is going to start with first view model. So let's do that, and obviously I don't have an app start first view model, so I'll create one. Public class first view model, and that first view model I need to inherit from an MVX view model, and the MVX view model I'll just put a property in there. So let's do a private string, and this is going to be underscore foo maybe. Public string foo, and for the get for that we will just return foo, and for the set we will set foo equal to value, and then we'll raise property changed. And again, this will be so much easier with IntelliSense. And you do actually get IntelliSense if you go back a couple of versions in Xamarin.Android. you'll get IntelliSense again. So unfortunately at the moment we're still not quite moving forwards with portable class library in Xamarin, but soon we will be moving forwards very fast, so it's worth the wait. So that hopefully should build as a core project. Let's just see. So it's saying it initializes marked as an override. I think that's just possibly a misspelling. Let me just see. Build. Okay, so that now builds. I'm really sorry that you don't have IntelliSense and you have all this red, even though it builds. It is changing, and we will get there. So the next thing we're going to do is add an Android application. And so this one we're going to add as an Android application with a UI. So this is Android demo.droid UI. And what that should hopefully create is a UI for me. And as references, I'm going to go across and I'm going to go back to that GitHub binaries directory, wherever it is. Binaries, there it is. And this time I'm going to go into Visual Studio again, so not the XS one, and into the release. And in here in Droid, I'm going to add system.windows, system.net. I'm going to add MvvmCross itself. I'm going to add the Droid project, and I'm going to add the binding couple of projects there, and then I'm going to add core cross, those two projects. So that's 6 projects in total. See them added. Oh, sorry, 6 of the serious ones and 2 of the system ones. They're going to be added, and then I'll go to the projects tab and I'll add the core project. Okay, hopefully that should do it. And then what I'm going to do is I also need to add some resources. So I'm going to add just a static file. And this file you can find if you go into it's available on Code Project in that sample, in GeekChamp, in the MvvmCross sample there, or it is available in the MvvmCross source tree as well. And you'll find it in serious mvvmcross.binding.droid, and you will find it in resources to copy. It's this mvx binding attributes. You can see its content there. And if I add it, then it's going to ask me to copy, which is what I'm going to do in this case. And you can see all that does is it declares my XML attributes that I need, so things like mvx bind and mvx item template. So that's now added in, so I can actually start on code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a setup class, and if I'm lucky again I'll get IntelliSense. If I'm unlucky I won't. So it's going to be called setup. It has to be called setup. And it's going to inherit from MVX Android setup. And does Xamarin Studio feel like telling me where Android setup is? No. Let me just see if I build whether it helps. Let's build. Right, so now do I get any IntelliSense? No. Okay, so you just have to know where these things are, unfortunately. Apologies, nothing I can do about it. Other than keep campaigning for portable class libraries and for other support. In fact, this isn't even portable class libraries, this is just normal references. So this is going to be droid.views, droid.platform I think for that one. Excuse me while I cough. Sorry about that. And that should then give me the Android setup. Let me just check. So it's telling me, right, so now at least I've got it. Yeah, so now it's just complaining about constructors. It's not complaining about type. So what I'm going to do is, so it's saying 2 things. First of all, it's saying that I need a constructor, and secondly, it's telling me I need to override create app. So let's do the constructor first. And the constructor, I need to take an argument which is going to be a context. Sorry, got that wrong. Context, which is app context. And it just passes that down to the base. So that's done. And then the next thing is it needs to override this create app method. So let's do it. And again, it's not giving us any help, which is a bit annoying, but there you go. So the override type of this is an IMVX application. IMVX application, which I think is all it is. And this was a create app was the name of the method. And what we need to return from that is a new app. And so that's return new core.app. And that's it. That should actually just compile, although maybe it's going to complain about the namespace of that. If only I had IntelliSense, it would, if only I had the type ahead or whatever you want to call it, the analysis, it would give me this automatically. So that interface I happen to remember, I think is in view models. So it's in that namespace. And then I think the only other thing we need to do is actually just set up our view. So let's do it. So we're going to set up our view as an MVX activity. It's a first view model, so it's going to be called a first view. And we don't need this count field, that's for other times. We can leave everything else here the same. And then what we will do is we will set up a binding in the layout. So our layout currently looks like this. And we would like to instead have it binding to foo for our text. So let's just do that. Let's add a text field, and edit text. There's our edit text. We're going to add a local namespace just so we can use local XML. So that's XML NS :local equals, and then we're going to use that resauto thing that Cheese Baron found for us, which is just wonderful. And enables us to just quickly do this res auto, and with that in place we can then just do binding. So we'll do local mvx bind equals text, and so we're going to bind that two-way to foo, and then just to prove that binding is happening we'll bind our the text on the button as well. Mvx bind equals text foo. And I think that you can see there that, you know, that should just work. I think that looks all right to me. So we'll build this, see if we get any build errors. It's telling me MVX activity. So MVX activity, again, it'd be wonderful if we had alt enter on that, but we don't. So this we need to do serious.mvvmCross .droid.views. And I have had alt.enter working on this, so maybe it's because of upgrades in this platform, I don't know, but it should just work. So we've then got, okay, so this is just a typo, app context, build, it's getting closer, woohoo, so it builds. So now let's try and run this. If we start debugging, I've got an Intel emulator up and running, and that's already got the things installed. So let's go over to that emulator, see whether or not we get it to deploy. I've had all sorts of problems with the emulator and with the Xamarin Studio this morning, but let me just see whether or not this is working at the moment. Fast deployment's not very fast, for example, and I've had fast dev creation refused and all sorts of things. But hopefully, with a following wind, this is hopefully going to deploy. It looks like my emulator might be in a bit of trouble at the moment, but let's see. It's not doing much. Oh, something's happened in the background. Does that mean it failed to work, or that it's working, or it's still saying installing in the background? Let me see. Is it giving me any more information? Still claims to be installing, so let's see whether it comes back with live. It looks a bit like it's a bit dead at the moment, my emulator. Okay, this isn't anything to do with MvvmCross. Let me kill that emulator. Right, and then let's try again. I don't think it's really fair to call that an internal error. So it's my second emulator. I'm going to start it up afresh. This will take 30 seconds or so. I wish I could sing or something else to entertain you during this 30 seconds. One other thing I can mention while this starts up is if you don't want to use portable class libraries, you can just use a standard Android assembly here. So an Android class library instead of the Android demo.core. And that should work as well. I do also believe you will be able to get IntelliSense working. I'm not sure why it was not working in the sample that I had up. It's worked for me plenty in the past. I don't know why it's not working today. So our Android emulator is slowly coming to life. Come on, Android, you can do it. I really need some jokes to tell during this. Whenever I'm waiting for an Android emulator, which is quite often, I need some good jokes to tell. So if anyone's got any jokes, please send them to me. There's one about hedgehogs. You heard the joke about hedgehogs? Hedgehogs really hate hedgehogs. Why can't they just get along and learn to share the hedge? Yeah, okay, not very good. Hopefully this emulator is almost booted. Here it comes, and so you won't need to get any more hedgehog jokes off me. So let's just give it that final hop. Here comes the emulator as it started. Normally it's got a nicer background than that when it does start, but today, well, it's slowly coming to life. So hopefully back here you can see that we've now got an emulator. So if I hit OK, then it's going to go off and it's detecting installed packages. And then, oops, it's locked. Don't really want it locked. Come on, emulator, come up to here, yay. And then we are installing the application again. And hopefully it won't stall at this point. Synchronizing assemblies, it's getting more hopeful this time. And now it's going to, oh no, don't stall at this point. Yay, so now it's coming up. You can see some trace coming. And hopefully this is an emulator, it's very slow, but hopefully this is now up and running. You can see it going through, there's a bit there, these traces finally coming through from MvvmCross. And you know, apologies for the speed of the emulator, that's nothing I can do anything about. But if you don't like this black area while you're waiting as well, then you can use a theme to make it look a lot nicer. But hopefully now we've got this up, and if I now start typing, then hopefully you can see that data binding is working. So you know, if I type in here foo space B-A, oh this is so slow, this emulator. If I type that in, then hopefully you can see that when I hit done and come back, then we have binding. So that is a demo of how to do MvvmCross on the current setup with Xamarin.Mac. As I say, the Xamarin had PCLs working at the beginning of April, ready for Evolve, but they missed their cutoff for QA by 2 weeks. So you know, mid-April they said again, you know, there's another 2 weeks, then there's QA. So at any point now, they were expecting kind of 2 to 4 weeks after Evolve to be able to ship these guys to us in alpha. And so at any point now, all of the instructions you've just seen will become obsolete. But at least at the moment, you can do things if you want to inside Xamarin Studio. So I hope that gives you a quick demo. There's also a demo around probably about 3 weeks old now of doing iOS. I could probably do iOS. Do you want to see iOS? Let's just quickly do it. So if I stop this run, let's see whether or not I can do it. Let's add a new project, which is going to be iOS. And we're going to add it just as an iPhone UI. Let's see if this works. So we're going to add it as the weird name of Android demo.touch UI. Sorry about this. And hopefully we can create that. I'm definitely going off script now. And let's see whether or not we can add some references. So we want to add a reference to the core project. And okay. And we would like to add references to some assemblies for touch as well. So let's go to that binaries directory. And again, we're going to choose the Visual Studio branch. I'm not going to touch the other one for now. And in release, what I'll do is I'll go into touch. And this time I would like system.windows and system.net. I would like the, just get the right key, the MvvmCross, MvvmCross touch. I'm not going to touch any plugins from now. I'm going to add binding and binding touch. I'm going to add cross core, both of those. So I'll add those, and hopefully I didn't miss any there. Hit OK. And then what I should be able to do in this project is, okay, so the app delegate needs a few little changes to it, and in particular I'd like to change it to an MVX application delegate. And please, yay, so this time I get IntelliSense, which is much nicer. And what I need to do is, instead of creating the view controller here in this root, what I need to do is I need to create a setup. So it's a var setup equals new setup, and I think, okay, so it's even come up with touch setup, which is good. So let me create this setup, Control C. So let me create my setup class, public class setup. Just end this so I get better IntelliSense. And this setup is going to inherit from MVX touch setup, and I need a constructor for it. Does it give me that by default? Oh no, it's just going to tell me to move it. So a constructor, and I think the constructor for this, I need it to take an MVX application delegate, and then I need it to take a window. What type is a window? UI window? UI window. Delegate UI window, and I think I just need to pass those down. So app delegate, comma window, and then the other thing I need to do, base. Some old habits coming through there. And then what I need to do is override. So if I'm lucky, override will give me the override for create app. And I'll return a new core.app. So that's my setup done. So back in here, in the app delegate, we're going to create a new setup. And that we're just going to pass in this comma window. And then we will also create, we'll call setup.initialize, otherwise it won't start. And then what we need to do is mvx.resolve. Just to start this thing, we need to call mvx.resolve, and this is going to be an imvx app start, and we're just going to call start on it. So there's a few things that we have to sort out, but alt enter does magic things here for us, so we don't need to, manually enter these things like we did with touch. So that's our core bit set out. And now what we can do is we can create our views. So let's just do that. Let's add a folder, call it views, and I think it's just a view folder we want here, just a first view we want. Oops, not add existing, add new. So let's add a new view. For that we'll go to iOS and we will choose an iPhone view controller, and we will call it first view. And first view, so the first thing we want to do is change it to an MVX view controller. And again, alt enter is just amazing in pulling that in for us. We did receive memory warnings because it's not very useful to us, so we'll get rid of that. And this comment we'll get rid of because we're going to do something more exciting in there in a moment. So what we do want to do is we would like to edit the zib, so let's do that. So double click the zib, and an error has occurred. Let me build it and see whether or not we can do this. Build. So it builds. So now can we open up the zib? Yes. So now we can open up the zib, and hopefully in Xcode. Right, so in Xcode we should be able to get the editor up for the zib, and let's to this zib add a label. Make it nice and big, and we'll increase the font size, and we'll make it a nice red. And then let's also add an edit field. So let's do edit. Okay, so it's the text field we want to add. So let's add this. And let's just make sure that it's there, and what we'll do is for background, okay, no, we'll leave that. What we'll do is I'd quite like to have some background here. So we're going to make the background yellow so we know where it is, and the foreground, well, let's make it a nice dark blue, shall we? Right, so we've got that. We've got a basic UI here, so let's just drag some things around. And what we'll do is view assistant editor, show assistant editor. That brings up our first view assistant. Then we can right click, we can do the new referencing, and this one is called the edit. For the label, what I'll do is call it, right click again and control click if you haven't got a right click, and call it the label. And then we can save this, hopefully, Control S, and then back in our Xamarin Studio, you can see it picks up the changes and it creates the edit and the label. So now we can do the binding, and the binding I'm going to use this fluent style. So what I'll do is var set equals this dot create binding set, and this is a binding set from a first view to a first view model. And again, hopefully we should be able to get some alt interaction, which is just wonderful because it just gives us this, you know, alt enter. And what I'll do is set dot bind, and so the first thing we're going to bind is the edit, and it knows that, you know, it's for an edit.text, so we don't need to put in it should know that it's for an edit.text. I'm not sure what I've got wrong there, so I just stop while I'm ahead. But what we're going to do is bind the to the view model. I think it was called foo, was it? Our property here. And also we'll do the same thing on the label. We'll bind its text to foo. Oops. IntelliSense ahead of me. IntelliSense is definitely ahead of me. And this is vm.foo. So apologies for the other stuff coming up. They're ahead of it, but that is our binding. Yeah. And now I believe that if I run this, so we're going to run it in debug, hopefully that will bring it up in a simulator. So let's see, so we hit the start, it's compiled, it's now trying to run it. What's it doing? It's waiting for a debugger. So it started the iOS simulator and kicked in. Obviously I haven't got a large splash screen, so it's not doing anything. If I go here and I start typing foo, then we're not getting any data binding. Why not? So it's telling me that there's an empty binding passed. Failed to create target binding for foo. So let's see what we did wrong. And run stop. Because I've done this demo quite a lot and I've never seen that message. So let's just see. So we've got here. So I did totally the wrong thing. I did an outlet collection for this guy. So let me get rid of that. Sorry, I chose the wrong type. That's why I had problems with the IntelliSense. So I chose here a referencing outlet collection. I don't know if you can see that. And I shouldn't have done that. So let me get rid of that. What I should have done, and this may really mess it up, is I should have done a new referencing outlet. Sorry about that. So that's going to be the edit 2, and I'll just see if I can get rid of this other one, but sometimes these things hang around. So let me just see if it's in here anywhere. Okay, so I need to get rid of that. How do I get rid of it? It doesn't seem to want to get rid of it. I don't know if it's down here or anything. Okay, so I might be stuck with the edit forever for the rest of my life. But I'll just use the edit 2 now. So if I save this and go back to Xamarin Studio, then hopefully here we've got the edit 2 now, and that's what I actually want to use. So I'm just going to use the edit 2, and now we should be able to run this. So sorry about that. That was me clicking and dragging and talking at the same time. But yeah, I don't. The new referencing outlet is for where you want kind of an array of things. Outlet collection is where you want an array of things, and I didn't want that. So now if I do foo, then you get your data binding, foo life. So hopefully that gives you a quick overview of using a portable class library with a Droid UI and a Touch UI. The Droid UI, I definitely had problems in here, and I guess they're still here, where I don't. Oh no, so now I have IntelliSense as well in my Droid UI. So, you know, all those problems I had earlier where I was not getting IntelliSense, I'm guessing now that if I wanted to use, you know, if I wanted a foo here and I actually wanted to inherit from, you know, something like an MVX, I'm trying to think of something that isn't in my current namespace, but if I wanted to use foo here, then I bet I can now, which is slightly annoying. So yeah, I don't know why earlier I didn't have IntelliSense, but it just didn't want to let me. So if I add a constructor here, for example, and I do mvx dot resolve I, then now I wonder if I also get alt enter. No, okay, so I still haven't got that much IntelliSense here, but I've got better than I had. Okay, so I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. I hope that gives you an overview of how you can do it. As I say, if you don't want to use a portable class library, then you can instead use a static library. So you can go to Android and just choose an Android library project, or you can go to iOS and you can choose an iOS library project, and then use one of those lovely file linking or other techniques to make that work. But I have given you a, oops, I'm almost out of battery, so I'm going to stop talking. But I have given you an overview there of how you can work with portable class libraries inside Xamarin Studio. My versions are the latest versions, and I really need to stop talking because I'm down to 9%. So I'm on 4.08, and I'm on the Mono 2.2N, 4.6.4 for Android, and iOS 4.2.5.2. Hope that's cool, and yeah, I better stop before I run out of battery. Hope that's good.